What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Josh. This is Native Nomads, and today we're going to be discussing a product that has been with me since the second overland trip I ever took and has yet to fail me. After 3 years, I think it's time to give this product some credit. All right, so before we get started diving into the WaterPort Day Tank and exactly how it has changed our overland experience, I have to say thank you to the sponsor of today's video and every single video you will see here on the channel, and that is Adventure Rig Shop. AdventureRigShop.com is where you can purchase the WaterPort Day Tank, as well as all the brackets and pieces that you may need for your WaterPort, as well as a ton of other off-road and overlanding related items for your next big adventure. Okay, so if you're new to overlanding, you're new to off-roading, and you're new to just maybe camping in national parks or primitive camp spots, then you may not be thinking about a pressurized water system. So it's story time, and I'm gonna get into a little bit of a story about how we kind of stumbled upon the WaterPort Day Tank. The WaterPort for us was never really on the radar, and 3 or 4 years ago, right when it came out, it was kind of like a new product and nobody really knew about it yet. But our first camping trip, our first overlanding trip, we had one of those spray bottles, one of those, had like a pump handle on it. It's kind of like a garden sprayer. Very inexpensive. You could probably get them for like 30 or 40 bucks on Amazon. I'll link one down below just so you guys can check it out if you're really trying to save some money and maybe pressurized water isn't such a big deal for you. In the beginning, it wasn't for us until we spent multiple weeks living out of our Jeep. Well, that first trip, we realized that there are some things that little pump bottle doesn't do for us. And also its form factor, it's kind of funky. It rolls over on itself. There were a lot of reasons why it just really didn't work for us, but we didn't know any better, and you may not know any better. So when we got back from that trip, I started looking up some type of pressurized water system. Now, the WaterPort Day Tank is a 3.8 gallon pressurized water container. So what does that mean? Well, you can carry 3.8 gallons of water pressurized at all times, I believe up to 60 PSI. I did an original video on this 3 years ago, and I'll put it up in the corner, and if you want to watch it, you can. It's probably really bad. I haven't watched it in a really long time, but it was giving information about the WaterPort that I knew at the time, and also I wasn't like comfortable doing this thing where I'm looking at you, but I'm actually looking into a camera lens. So I didn't really have a clue what the heck I was doing, but I was trying to give the information about it because at the time it was so helpful for us. Having 3.8 gallons of pressurized water changes everything. And when I say changes everything, it makes things a lot easier. So for us, we use the pressurized water system for multiple different things and things you may not think of. The very easy ones are brushing your teeth. And maybe that isn't an easy one for you, but brushing your teeth. You could use just a bottle of water, but you waste a lot of water that way. And the pressurized water comes out. You can make it a fine mist. You have multiple different ways that you can change the nozzle so you can have like a smaller amount of water coming out. But we use it for that, doing dishes, as well as taking very small, short showers just to get yourself cleaned up. If you've been in the desert or you've been in the mountains for multiple days on end, and back then there was no Julka hot water system where you could take a hot shower by funneling water from a stream into a pump through a propane canister and then have endless amounts of hot water. That didn't exist 4 or 5 years ago. Like, there just wasn't a thing. And if it was, nobody knew about it. Nobody was talking about it. Like, it hadn't like really came out yet. And it may have came out overseas, but here in America, we didn't really have that kind of system because this whole overlanding, off-roading community type thing was really just taking off. Now let's fast forward those 3 or 4 years. There's a different type of water tank all over the place. There's aluminum water tanks. There's the WaterPort. WaterPort has different variations of the WaterPort. There are all of these pressurized water systems that you can pick up these days. And I suggest that you do the research. We also have a Yakima Road Shower, which is a 7-gallon basically kind of like one of these little guys that's sitting behind me, but it's made of aluminum, and it can also hold, obviously 7 gallons, but it can be pressurized. You can drive with the pressurized, and it's great too. But it's, in my opinion, after having both, it's not nearly as good as the WaterPort, and it's a little bit more expensive, but before all of those showers came about and all of these different types of water systems, this was really the only thing on the market. And the reason I think that the WaterPort is really good for anybody who's just trying to get out, because the things that you don't think about are muddy dogs, muddy kids, definitely muddy kids, muddy boots, drowning your fire before you take off from a camp spot. That's one thing that we have used this for a lot. In the morning, if it's chilly out, we'll usually have a fire, we'll drink our coffee, we'll hang out, and that's like one of my favorite times of the day. Hanging out in the morning, drinking coffee in front of a campfire while the sun's coming up or it's just coming over the mountains. It's just one of my favorite times. And even at home, every morning I get up, I drink my coffee, I enjoy my mornings. I'm on my computer, I'm editing photos, I'm doing whatever it is that I want to do for those 2 hours of the day. I know 2 hours is what it takes for me to get started every single day, but those moments are great in the mountains. But when you have a fire in the morning, there's no way to make sure that fire's out really, unless you really drowned it, and then you take off, an hour and a half later after you had a fire. So we drown our fires with this, especially if we know we're going to be somewhere else that's going to have water. And generally any gas station that you stop at has a spigot outside, and if you ask them, you can fill your water up. I don't drink with this water. I do brush my teeth, and we do our dishes, and we'll take little showers, but I have separate containers that I use for carrying water. And if you'd like to know about those, just leave a comment. I'll happily provide a link in the comments. Just let me know if that's something that you're interested in. I'd be happy to talk about it. But the WaterPort Day Tank, the biggest thing for me is 3.5. I keep saying like a different number, 4 years, 3 years, 3.5 years. I don't exactly remember when we bought it, but I know it was at least, very bare minimum, 3 years ago. We have had the same exact fittings on the hose, same exact fitting on the nozzle. We haven't had any issues with the cap. We've had no issues with punctures. We've had no issues with the seals, and I haven't changed a single item on my WaterPort Day Tank, period, over 3 years. I just had to pull it out of the back of the Outback Wilderness because I take it with us when we go hiking or when we're doing things outside. It's got water in it, it's pressurized, and I just take it with us. It's because it's super simple to have, and if my daughter comes back or the dogs come back from a hike and they're super muddy, I can spray them off before I let them get back in the car. So it's just one of those things that you don't really think about how many different areas you can use a pressurized water system, and it's not, I did back in the day when I first made the video, I considered it like a glamping item, this pressurized water system. But now it's like, after 3 years, I've used it so many times that I honestly don't really leave home without having pressurized water. I just toss it in the back of my car and it stays there. And it's usually really hot in Arizona, so the water's always warm. And if we come out of the mountains and we come out of hiking, I got to spray something off or I got to do something, wash my daughter's hands because she's got mud all over them, whatever it is, I have pressurized water, and it's a very simple thing to carry around with you all the time that doesn't take up a ton of space. Okay, we can talk about now how you use this thing. And for the record, I don't get paid by WaterPort. They didn't send me this. I bought this with my own money, and I've just been using it for 3 years. And it's been sitting in my garage, and it's been getting beat to death. And I thought it was important to make a video about a product that lasts a long time, a product that has a good longevity, because it seems like a lot of things we get these days, they break a lot easier than they used to. And I hope that WaterPort has not changed their construction. I hope this is the same thing that you purchase if you decide to purchase one, because it is fantastic. Now, the use of the product is also extremely easy. On one end, you have your fill spout. It's just a simple circular cap that you spin off. You take that cap off, you either dump water into it or you fill it with a hose, whatever you prefer, whatever you have access to, and then you tighten that thing down. You have to tighten that handle down, or that handle down pretty tight, just because you got to think of, you're putting 60 psi, up to 60 psi in this thing, and it's going to be bouncing around on the trail or bouncing around down the road. So you have to make sure that that lid is secure on the top of the WaterPort. Just back behind the fill spout is where you will find the pressure relief valve. So if you have too much air in it, or you don't want to travel with it filled up for whatever reason, or you just need to get that cap to come off, sometimes that cap is hard to get off if there's still pressure in it. And even if you've taken all the water out of it and the hose is just spitting air out, there's still sometimes pressure in there that you may need to get out with that pressure relief valve. And if you overfill it, I would recommend using a tire gauge or something. If you have an ARB compressor in your Outback, or you have an ARB compressor in your vehicle, I would recommend that you use a pressure gauge that has a readout on it. That way you know how many PSI is actually in that thing, because you don't want to overfill it. If you do, you could blow the seals, and I'm sure that's not covered under any type of warranty through WaterPort. Also, you don't want to put too little pressure in it, because you'll blow through that really quickly depending upon which setting you have on the nozzle. On the opposite side of where the screw cap is where you fill it up. Now, you can simply use any type of tire pressure gauge. It is the same type of fitting that you will see on the air pressure stem on your vehicle tire. So all you need to do is, if you stop by a gas station that has a tire pump, and you could pump up your WaterPort with that if you don't carry a compressor with you. You could get a really cheap compressor and keep that compressor in your car, plug it into your cigarette outlet. In 45 seconds, you have 60 PSI inside the WaterPort, and you have a pretty good amount of pressurized water. So those are really the only things that you need to know and how to use it. You fill it up on the one end, you have the pressure relief valve on the other, and then you have the nozzle that you got to keep tight. Now, there is a on-off switch on the same side as your little screw handle thing that you take off. And underneath that, you can just flip the little black component up or down, and that either allows the water to come out into the hose, or it keeps the water there so the hose isn't filled with water. I would recommend when you travel that you close that off so all the air stays tight within the unit and it's not escaping through the hose. That is a mistake that we made on several occasions. That hose is not capable of containing 60 PSI. At least the one I have is not. So if you have a hose, if you have your hose connected and you leave that valve open, it will continue to press water and push air out, and next time you go to use it, it'll have no pressure. So always shut that off once you're done using it if you want to maintain your pressure while you're driving or while you're away from it, going on an adventure, going on a hike, or doing whatever it is that you do. Now, the last thing on your WaterPort that you need to know about is it has a hose handle in both ends. The one that connects to the WaterPort itself and the one that goes into the hose both have a quick release system on it. You just push it down or pull it up and it pops the handle off. Push it down when you're locking it in, you just push it in and it locks, and then you pull the tab back and you pull it right out. It's very, very simple to use. And they used to, I don't know if they still do, but they used to send extra fittings in case something were to break, or they sent like extra O-rings, little things that in case something were to happen, you could just repair it yourself, which I thought was super awesome. But I've never, ever had to use them. I don't carry them with me. I didn't even bring them to the house in Arizona. They're still in Ohio. It's just this unit has outlasted anything I thought it would, and it's incredible that I'm still using this 3.5 or 4 years later. I forget, but I use it all the time. It's super dirty. You can tell it's beat up, it's banged up, it's been dropped. I mean, it's fallen out of the back of the truck. It's been through it. So another thing that I think is important, though, is that there are multiple mounting options. The one I have on this WaterPort right now is a mount for the top of my Prinsu rack. If you guys are familiar with the channel, you'll know that my Prinsu rack is, I have one on the Lexus GX460, and I have a Prinsu rack on my Subaru Outback Wilderness. I can keep this on that same exact mount and transfer it from vehicle to vehicle if I do want to put it on the roof. I generally don't put it on the roof. My GX460 has an iCamper on it, so I just don't have the space up there. And then I really, ever since I kind of dialed back the Outback Wilderness, I've decided to keep as few things on the roof as possible, just to reduce wind drag and keep my gas mileage up, especially chasing storms and doing all of these things, driving long distances. I try to maintain the best gas mileage that I can in doing so. But the mount that I have on here connects directly to the roof. Now you can also get a mount that connects directly to the tow hitch on your vehicle. There are several different mounting solutions and mounting options, and I will try to compile those and put them in the description for you in case you're looking around for different mounting options. But if you're just looking for a WaterPort Day Tank, the link is in the description. You can find it at adventurerigshop.com, and you can use the code NOMAD at checkout to save yourself 5% if you're looking for one of these things for your next off-road, overland, camping, or family outing. So that's really all that I got today. I wanted to give a huge shout out to WaterPort for making a really, really good product. If you've had good experiences with WaterPort, leave that in the comments. Also, if you don't use WaterPort, but you use something else and it works really well, also put that in the comments, because I like new gear. I have somebody called it gear acquisition syndrome. And I think that happens to most men. Women, I don't know if you have it as much, but it is something that, I'd love to know the experiences that you guys have had, so possibly I can purchase a different item and then test it and review it, and maybe it'll work and maybe it'll suck, and I'll tell you either way, honestly. So that's it. If you guys have any questions, leave those in the comments as well. Like and subscribe, follow on Instagram, nativenomads.us, do all those cool things, and we will see you on the next one.